What's up, journeyers? Welcome to our Tuesday live training for today. It is the debt debate. I am so stoked. Y'all, I say that every week. Have you guys figured out yet that I love talking about money? I love talking about money, and I'm stoked, and I get excited every single time I get to talk about money. So if you can't handle it, find another group, because we're going to talk about money, all things money. So we're having the debt debate. The debt debate, if you are jumping on, say hi. If you're jumping in the replay, you can say replay, or you can just say hi, because I'll still come and say hi to you. And I want to know how you feel about debt. Hit me up in the comments with one word of how you feel about debt, because this debate has been a long time coming in my world, and my opinions on it have changed and shifted and evolved and grown and are worthy of debate at this point, because I honestly am still debating it a little bit with myself, which is okay. So the first thing I want everyone to hear in this debt debate is it is okay for you to, number one, make your own decision about how you feel about debt. And number two, it is okay for you to change your mind, right? It's okay for you to change your mind multiple times about how you feel about debt, okay? So you've heard before, you've heard good debt, bad debt, right? But who decides? Like, who made up the term good debt? You want to know who made up the term good debt? Actually, I can tell you who made up the term good debt. The people that sell you that debt. Not even kidding, you guys. The people who said, well, that's okay because it's good debt. Those are people who have a vested interest in you getting that debt, right? It's good debt. It's an investment, they tell you. It is an investment. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do in our little debt debate is I'm going to bust a few myths about debt, because there are myths floating around about debt that make people feel like there is zero problem with any kind of debt, and it's all an investment, and it's all fine, and it's all a tool, and it's all good, right? It's just not true. And so the most important thing for me, like I said, is you get to make your own decision. But in order to do that, the most important thing that I see is that you have all of the information, right? That's fair. So first thing I'm going to do is tell you that by definition, an investment is something that gives you a positive return. Okay, that's why we call it a ROI, return on investment, meaning you invest and you get something back for it, right? Typically, you get something back over and above and beyond what you spent or the investment that you made, okay? So you are therefore rewarded for an investment, okay? You are rewarded for an investment. Make sense? A debt is not an investment if you are not rewarded for it. Now, let me be clear. I don't mean 1% cash back rewards and miles, okay? You got to spend $10,000 to get $100 worth of rewards. That's not what I mean, okay? I mean you actually get a return. You actually get something back for the money that you put in, okay? So a debt is something that, well, let me rephrase. A debt, by definition, is money that you owe, or anything that you owe to anybody for any reason, okay? So the other myth I want to clear up here really fast is people will tell me, I don't have any debt. I just have student loans and a car payment. That's debt, okay? Debt is anything you owe to anybody for any reason, okay? And that's why there's this conversation about, is it good debt or bad debt, right? Debt is anything you owe to anybody for any reason. Okay, if I owe somebody a coffee, I'm in their debt, right? Because I owe them a coffee. Okay, so debt is anything you owe to anybody for any reason. Now, we talked about a reward. Rewards means you get something in return for what you gave, right? Whether it was for your effort or for your money or for an investment, you get a reward for it. If you are charged and have to give up something or give something or pay something in order to have that thing or do the thing or be part of the thing, that's a penalty or a fee. Okay? Penalties and fees, especially penalties, when you are penalized for using something, that's not a reward. Okay? That is not an investment. And so when we look at debt, and I'm going to be specific here to credit cards because this is where people say, but I get rewards, right? So let's clear up the difference here. Getting 1% cash back when you are charged 7 to 25 to sometimes 30% interest rates, aka penalties, that's not a reward, that's a trick. Okay, so please understand, and again, this is just you, and I have a lot more to say about this, I promise. Stick with me. The credit card industry, the banking industry, the finance industry, the debt industry, we are the most marketed to generation when it comes to debt ever. Ever. They are expert marketers. Also, they are a business. The bank is not just some place that felt like holding your money for you and is just trying to be nice to hang on to your cash for you, okay? They are a business. They're a business. That's why they have skyscrapers in downtown, right? It's a business. Therefore, they need to make money. And any business knows that you can give away a certain amount of money, spend a certain amount of money on advertisement, spend a certain amount of money on gifts for your clients, things like that, that will improve your profit margin and your revenue income, okay? It's a business related thing. You bring in more money. If you choose to, it's a great example. Kroger is so good at this, and I am guilty of it. Kroger will send me coupons for the things that I buy most frequently. So they'll look at my little rewards card and they'll say, oh, she buys these things all the time. And so they'll send me coupons. And on that coupon, it says I have to buy 3 to get the $1 off. And so when I go back to the store, do I buy 1? Do I even buy the 2 where I only need 2? No, I buy freaking 3 of them at a time because I got a freaking coupon, right? They know that by giving me that $1, I'm going to spend more than I would have. And oh, by the way, while I'm at Kroger getting those 3 creamers, coffee creamers, I'm also going to get snacks and a couple of other things that I need, right? By them giving me that $1, rewarding me with that $1, I have now spent more money with them. And I've spent my money with them instead of with the other store. Okay? It's marketing. Every company does it, and I need you to know the banks do it too. Okay? So they will give you a reward. They'll give you 1% on your credit card, maybe even 2%. Some places and certain expenses you get 5%, right? But you have to qualify for that. Certain expenses. Okay? And then they charge you 7, 11, 25, 30% interest on your purchases. Now, I hear somebody going, but Nicole, I pay off my credit card every single month. Statistically speaking, 80% of people do not pay off their credit card every month. They just don't, okay? Statistically speaking, 80% of people do not pay off their credit card every month, and the banks know that. So it is a strategic move on their part to give you that little cash back to get you to put everything on the credit card, knowing that 80% of people do not pay off their full balance every month, and therefore now they're earning interest on you. I'm telling you this because I want you to see it for what it is. I want you to see the truth of it and the reality of it. Is it possible and is it doable, and do people all the time put all of their expenses on their credit card and immediately pay it off before they ever get charged interest on it? Absolutely. It is possible, it is doable, it requires diligence, and it requires paying attention. But it is absolutely doable. And then you've gotten your 5% cash back, and you didn't get penalized for it, which is great, okay? But if you are getting charged interest, you are getting penalized for those purchases, and therefore it is not an investment, okay? So penalties, your interest that you are charged is a penalty. Interest that you earn is a reward, okay? So now let's talk about good debt versus bad debt. If you're watching the replay, I want you to drop, and if you're live, I want you to drop, what kinds of things have you been told are good debts? What is a good debt? What have you been told is a good debt? I will tell you the things I've heard are good debts is anything that provides you some sort of asset. So I've even heard of student loans, maybe a good debt because you get your degree and you can get a job. Hopefully, maybe, hopefully, right? We can talk about student loans another day because I have all the soapboxes for student loans. A house, a car, right? People tell you that it's a good debt because you have some sort of asset, right? And we talked about this with the investment talk that we had a couple weeks ago, where we talked about ROI, right? So if you have a good ROI, then it's a good debt, okay? And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, because that's going to be part of how we make these decisions. So those are the kinds of things that I hear people say: student loans, cars, houses. So I am here to tell you, oh, and a bad debt would be anything not that, right? So just like putting stuff on a credit card. That's what society will tell you. Those things are good debts. Putting investments or larger purchases and things like that on a credit card, it's okay because it's an investment, right? But you're getting penalized for it. So you have to be careful and you have to really, really, really think it through. So here's the platform that I now stand on. So I used to say we don't use debt. The only thing we would use debt for is a house purchase, okay? We don't use debt. That was our value that we stood on. And over time, we have slightly adjusted that because it's really important that you look at the details of this, right? So I told a story a couple weeks ago, so I'll tell it again, but I invested in a business coach for a year-long business program. And that course, that 1 year long program, was a $5,000 investment. And I'm telling you, it was more than worth that $5,000. How did I know? ROI, right? I looked at that and said, what am I going to get out of this? I can tell you I have made back more than $5,000 in my business since I started in that program. So I've gotten my money back, right? ROI, and I still have the rest of a year. I still have another 8 months plus in that program, right? So what I'm getting back in return is more than worth the money that I paid for it, okay? And so where's the line of, do I put this on a credit card or do I pay cash for it? How do I actually work this out? And so I want to talk you through how I made this decision, because we put it on the credit card. And I'm going to tell you why. So the two payment options for this program was $5,000 paid in full or $650 a month for a year. I looked at how much I was making in my business and I was like, oh, $650 a month, I can make that payment, right? I can make that payment, which is what people ask themselves when they think about how much something is, right? I can make that payment. But then I did the math. $650 a month for a year was $7,800. Or I could pay $5,000 if I paid it up front. Well, that just seemed crazy, right? Why would I pay $7,800 when I could pay $5,000? The difference for us was I wanted it to be paid out of my business, and I didn't want to take it out of our personal emergency fund or our personal savings, because those things had a value and a priority for me, right? For us, it was more important that we kept our personal emergency fund and that the business specifically paid for this investment. I did the math. Am I being penalized for this investment? Yes, because it's on my credit card. So I am being charged a 4% interest rate, and I have a good interest rate for all the time that I carry a balance. So I did the math. If I paid the $650 a month anyways, even though my minimum payment on my card would be different, but I went ahead and paid that, it would take me 8 months to pay it off, and I would only be charged just over $100 in interest. To me, the difference was $7,800 or $5,100, totally and completely worth the investment, and therefore worth using debt in this case as a tool to get there in a way that did not take away from our family, right? In a way that didn't take away from the things that were more important to me. So there's so many different values here that you can factor in when you think about, do I use debt for this? Now, return on investment, return on your purchase, what are you getting for this purchase, is a good way to think about, is this worth using debt to get there? A house is another beautiful example. 9 times out of 10, and I don't have the exact statistics, but a majority of the time, a massive majority of the time, homes go up in value or maintain their value. the likelihood of your home going down in value is very low. Now, 2008 was a totally different story, right? But overall, homes, houses, property, real estate maintains or goes up in value. So you use debt to purchase it. As you're paying down your debt, the home is maintaining its value. And so the difference between what you owe and what you own keeps getting bigger, right? Because what you owe, and I think I said that right, what you owe and what you own will keep getting bigger because the home's going to maintain or even go up in value. And so that asset is actually growing. So you've used debt to get the asset, but the asset itself is actually growing and you're creating value in that spot, right? Now let's look at the difference between that and a car. Here's the value of the car when you buy it and you finance it, okay? Maybe you put a little bit of a down payment, right? But you still spent that money. But let's say this is how much debt you actually have on it. Over time, you pay off your car, and what happens to the value of the car? You know what's crazy though? You know what actually happens to the value of the car? Right? At some point, what you owe and how much it's worth is going to be the same. For a long time, what happens is people will finance and the car just drops in value. And so it takes a while for them to even be the same, right? And so you literally are losing value on this thing and now you've used debt. So not only did you pay what you financed, but you paid all of the interest on it. Do you know if you finance a $20,000 vehicle, finance $20,000 on a vehicle at like a 4% interest rate? I could do the math. I'll do the math because I think it's important that we actually do the math. So let's see. Future value of at that much over, let's see, 72 months, right? 6 years for a car. Present value, $20,000. No, that wasn't what I wanted. Nope, that's not right. I'll do the math anytime. But you're probably paying at least $25,000 to $30,000 over the course of the actual 6 years that you're paying on it, right? So you pay on it for 6 years, you pay 4% annual interest on it, you're going to continue to pay more and more. So how much you actually pay for that car is way more than you actually financed for it. So you end up paying $25,000 for this car, right? That was only ever worth 20, that immediately lost its value. And by the time you finish paying $25,000 for this vehicle, it's worth maybe 5. Okay. So was that investment of that penalty of $5,000 and the payment of 20 really worth what you got out of it? You see what I'm saying? So there's the difference between being rewarded by the thing that you spent debt on going up in value versus the thing that you spent debt on going down in value. You're being penalized for purchasing that with debt. Okay, so this is a good way to say what's really happening with this debt and is it worth what I'm doing, right? And so when you spend debt on something, there is a consequence. And the question you need to ask yourself of whether this is a good debt or a bad debt is whether that consequence is worth it. Is that consequence worth it? You spend 6 years paying $25,000 for a vehicle that is now only worth 5. Or what we did for this most recent vehicle we purchased is we spent some time, we saved up, we bought used. So we bought a vehicle that has barely, so we bought it for $16,000 and it is currently worth about 10 or 11. And it's been, that was 2018. No, that was 2019. So it's been about 2 years since we bought the car. So in 2 years, we spent the 16, we've only lost about $5,000 in value. We've paid 0 interest, so we've paid no penalty on having that money. We currently owe nothing. So if something horrible happens to the car, we just get $10,000, right? Like we just get cash for it, right? And so we chose not to use debt, not to be penalized for that purchase because we knew the car was just going to go down in value. And it did. And it did, right? So you get to make those decisions. Student loans are another thing altogether. Like I said, I can totally get on soapboxes about that. But the big thing with student loans is how much are you really paying for your education? Right? School choice, like where you choose to go to school, what kind of degree you're getting, all of these things will determine whether your education was actually even worth what you paid for it, let alone all of the interest that you pay over the course of however long it takes you to get your student loans paid off. And so you're not just paying the $50,000 that you paid for your student loans, you're paying all of the interest that it's taking you, and you're paying all of that now for your degree. And if your degree from the university that you went to is only going to get you a job paying maybe $40,000 a year, was it worth all of the penalties that you took on? You see what I'm saying? If you can make a purchase using debt, get a little bit of penalties for it, but get massive things in return, that's how you know it's worth it, right? So the debate here is not, is it okay to use debt? Is it okay to use credit cards? It's about being super smart and actually thinking, what am I getting in return for the use of this credit card? What did I get by using my credit card for this business expense? Number one, I saved $2,700 by not doing the payment plan, right? Wouldn't have been debt, but it would have been $2,700 more. I also saved our family from using up our emergency fund. And so I saved some peace of mind and some emotional like security there, right? Of saving that. And I've gained, like I said, I've already gained back all of the money I invested. And there's another 8 months left in this program of support and coaching, right? And so what I'm getting back for the small penalty of $100-ish that I'll pay over the course of paying off this credit card, well beyond worth it. Well beyond worth it, right? So the debate here is not, is it okay to use debt? Is it not okay to use debt? Is there good debt, bad debt? There's a couple that I'll say, listen, if you're not getting anything in return for that, you shouldn't be financing it because you're paying a penalty for it, right? So it's about being smart. It's about thinking about it. It's about being intentional and mindful about what you're using debt for, right? Because can we use debt in a way that brings us massive returns? The best example being real estate. Absolutely. Absolutely. We can utilize financing, especially creative financing, to create massive assets in our world. Absolutely. So debt is not evil, right? But when you start to get suckered in by all the marketing and you start to think, well, but I'm getting cash back, I'm getting travel rewards, I'm getting all of these things, right? When you start to get suckered into the marketing, and I literally joked with my client today about Starbucks' marketing because they do this too. They're having a bingo rewards program right now where if you like buy certain things on certain days and like before 11 a.m. and like you buy it with the lunch and you buy it with an iced tea, then like if you do all the things, then at the end of it, you can get like 350 bonus points, which you guys is enough for 2 free drinks. Okay. So I say will because I'm probably going to do it. But in theory, to do all of the things to get the 350 bonus points, you probably have to spend $150 for all the different purchases. You have to buy like 6 drinks and 2 teas and buy on so many days, right? There's a lot of different things you have to do. So I'll probably spend $150 on coffee over the course of the time to get all of these things, to get 350 rewards points. And you're like, woohoo, that's 2 drinks, y'all. 2. It's $12. Right? It's a total of $12. Okay. I got suckered into the marketing. So when you're looking at using debt, especially credit cards, just be really aware, like be really self-aware of, are you getting suckered into the marketing of what they call a reward that isn't actually a reward? Okay. Like I said, is it possible that you can get your reward points and then pay off your credit card without ever accruing interest, and therefore you're not being penalized for your purchases? Absolutely. But the banks know that 80+% of people don't do that. And so they know that they're taking a risk, right? They're taking a little bit of a risk because they're pretty sure you're not going to pay it off, and they're going to get more money out of you because your interest rate is way higher than your rewards, right? Notice their rewards are never 20%. Their rewards are never as high as the interest rates, right? So it's just about being smart. It's about being smart, It's about being intentional. It's about being mindful. And it's also about being educated. It's about really knowing, what does this investment really mean? Is this a good investment? Am I getting more back than I'm putting in? And especially, am I getting more back such that any penalty I incur will be worth it? Right? That's really the question. It's not, is it good debt or bad debt? Is it worth it? And you get to decide, but you also need to be educated, be mindful, and be intentional, because you deserve to have the things that you want in your life without going backwards because of all the penalties that you incur, right? You get to decide what that looks like. If you're in a position where you're like, I need to make a purchase, I don't know how to do it, right? Or maybe you're dealing with debt stuff, or maybe you're just like, okay, clearly I have questions, right? I have questions about debt. I have questions about how to pay stuff off. I have questions about how to make purchases actually like work for me. That's what I'm here for, y'all. So I'm gonna drop a link. This is for a free financial breakthrough consult. Like, jump on a call with me for 20 or 30 minutes. We'll talk about it. I'll give you some direction, because I think it's really important. Like I said, my job is not to tell you what decisions to make. My job is to make sure that the myths are busted, that the education is there, so that you can make an aligned, mindful, and an educated, intentional decision with what you do with your money, because it's your money, right? And you deserve to enjoy it. And you also deserve to enjoy the journey, right? Because money is a journey, right? I love you guys. Trust yourselves. Enjoy the freaking journey. And if you want to jump on a free call with me, the link is in the comments. All right. Love y'all. Bye.